Hello.
What's up? What's up?
Welcome back.
Welcome. Second week of May. It's May.
Yeah,
It's spring.
thank God.
It's spring. You know, I love April because it's my birthday month.
Yes.
But April showers is a real thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm ready for
I'm
Mayflowers. I am ready for the Mayflowers.
Yeah, the tulips are coming out though.
They are.
They're showing
are.
off in the city now.
But then I know, in April it was just a lot of like, it's going to rain and pour for 30 minutes.
I
It's
know.
gonna be fine.
I know.
You know?
I feel like I need to get I don't have a small umbrella on me, but I feel like just right now I need to always have one because you never know.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
I know. Oh, man. Anyways, so happy it's May. We're continuing reading books, AAPI authors.
Woohoo.
Hope that you guys are reading some really good books.
Yes.
We're having a great time. Our book club is also chilling. We're doing good there. And don't forget that we always have our Fable link below for our book club.
Yes.
So just pointing that out there at the beginning of the episode. You can always check that out and join us. But when it comes to book club, et cetera, we wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like when you are in a book slump. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So thinking about, I feel like also it's kind of hard to describe what a book slump is because it kind of means different things for different people.
Okay. What does it mean for you?
So I think for me, what it means is that I'm just in a rut of like, I'm reading, but every book is just like giving 3 stars. Like there's no book that I'm like, I am so excited to pick this up and read it. Mm-hmm. But it also could mean that I'm just like, I just don't feel like reading right now.
Right.
And I just want to watch a TV show or I wanted this, which by the way, like that's the kind of slump that is totally fine. There should be no pressure whatsoever to read. Mm-hmm. You know, we both love like watching TV. Like we'll talk about the shows that we're watching. Like I'll recommend you a show, et cetera. Like, so this is not the kind of slump of like, where it's like a positive, I don't feel like reading, I want to do other cozy hobbies. Right. That's not this kind of slump. We're kind of talking about when you are almost like depressed reading, like you're, you know, like where either you're slumping being like, I want to read, but nothing sounds good. Or you're reading and you're like, I'm just not having a good time. Yeah. For you, what does that kind of look like?
I look at the word slump as like stuck. Yeah. You know, I keep reading books that are like mid. And then I'm like, well, I hope this is good. Okay, this isn't good. Or I didn't like it as much. And I like, sometimes I DNF, sometimes I finish. And then I'm like, well, I need a break. And like, it's almost a little sad because I'm like, I'm in a book slump and I just like want a really good book to hit. And almost right at that moment, you end up finding a really good book that hits, which is great. So that's the nice thing about coming out of a book slump. But being in it, it's just kind of like, I don't want to pick up something. Mm-hmm. And like, if you've tried a couple times, like for me, like I'm just like, okay, I just need to step away for a second and like do something else. Yeah.
When do you think you were last in like a slump?
Oh man, I think maybe after I read A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, I was in a book slump. I was a bit disappointed with how that went because I was so excited because I love kind of like that time travel, a perennial, somebody that just lives forever kind of thing. I love that trope so much. It did not hit me as hard as I wanted it to. Maybe I had high expectations. I couldn't stop thinking about the book for a while. I was like, I'm going to go to the bookstore. I want to touch it. I would like, and that disappointment kind of got me like, okay, well, and it was like toward the middle of March. And then I just kind of didn't read for like a week and a half and it was sad. Yeah. Yeah. What about you?
I mean, I think in December was a little bit weird because it was very busy. You know, the holidays take over. But sometimes I think, like when I think back to like the winter, like December area, I was like reading, but it was like I was doing some rereads, some new books. And I just kind of remember being like, the books I was reading that were my new books were just like, like it was fine. And then honestly, I would not say that I was in a slump in April. Because I wouldn't describe it as a slump, but I will say that I read some books that like were just kind of like no 5 stars necessarily. There were some that were 5 stars. But sometimes when I'm reading a book that I'm just like, it's kind of mid, like it does put me in a little bit of like maybe a couple days of a slump. So I wouldn't count that as like a full slump, but just kind of like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
March had a little bit of that too. I will say I didn't have a single 5-star in March. Didn't mean I didn't have a good time reading, but it's kind of sad when you finish a month of reading and you're like, there were no 5 stars. Like, come on, y'all. Like, you know.
I know.
Thankfully, April got better, and there were some 5 stars. But
yeah.
Anyways, I think there's a couple things that you can implement if you're really, and again, like this is not to say like if you're in a place where you're like, I don't feel like reading right now, I want to watch a TV show that I'm interested in, or you know what, I just really feel like drawing or what, like, you know, whatever it might be, crocheting, like, and you don't feel like currently reading, that's totally fine. This is just we wanted to talk about some like tips and tricks and also maybe books to help you get out of a slump if you really want to get out of a slump.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And I will say the number one thing that has helped me are rereads.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also because I have always been somebody to rewatch shows. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
But
I do too.
I rewatch movies and shows. And specifically, this is going to sound kind of funny, but I have my like comfort movies that I put on when I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
And
wait. Yeah. What are your comfort movies? I want to know.
The Emperor's New Groove.
I have to say that is one of my favorite Disney movies, top tier.
So
it's
good.
Hilarious.
Ratatouille.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cute.
Those are like top 2 in terms of like, I'll put on Hercules sometimes.
Oh.
But I think I find myself going to The Emperor's New Groove the most. And I think it's because the humor never gets old for me.
Never.
And there's always a new joke. There's always something that makes me laugh.
I love that.
I think I just need like that kind of nostalgic Disney, but it's just also so funny. Like there's not a single moment in that movie where I'm like, I'm going to cry. Like, no, like never. You know, in Ratatouille, there's a couple moments where I'm like, oh, this was sad.
I know.
But there's also something really comforting about that movie. WALL-E is another one.
I love
But
WALL-E.
I don't find myself going to that one as often.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I have these like movies that are very specific for days.
That's cool.
That I want to put on when I'm just not having a good day.
I'll say mine real quick.
Yeah, I want to know what yours
Princess Diaries and the Lizzie McGuire movie.
Yeah.
Every time. Oh, and I will do Emperor's New Groove if I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next time we're both having a bad day. We like collectively put on. You want to watch the Emperor's New Groove? Like,
yeah.
But I think that taking that idea and applying it to books, you know, what is a book for you that's a comfort book? You know, or just
That's
a book
good.
that you want to pick up and even read a couple chapters of. Read half the book. Like,
that's a good idea.
I've done that. I've done that before, and it's really like helpful.
Yeah.
Because you're reading, and it does count as reading. Like, I am a firm believer that a reread still counts as like reading a book. You can add it to your reading books for the year. Like, never think that a reread is not reading.
Right.
But sometimes it's just really helpful to get back into a world, or get back into characters' lives that you love. Mm-hmm. And that will kind of reset your brain to be like, oh, we're reading.
I love that.
We're reading, you know? And it's just so comforting to be back in some of your favorite characters' worlds.
Yeah.
Whether that's fantasy or rom-com or whatever that might be.
I love that. That's a good idea.
Rereads have really helped me a lot. And like I said, sometimes I don't even read the whole book. I'll like get like halfway through and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm ready to start a new book now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It just kind of, it's like a reset.
Yeah.
You know?
That's cool.
Have you ever, it sounds like maybe you haven't tried that.
I have not tried that. You know what's been on my mind recently is A River Enchanted.
I really want to reread that. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my gosh, if I could, this is one of my like TikTok videos of like, if you could sell your soul to read one more book again for the first time, it would absolutely be A River Enchanted. And like sometimes when I like want to feel cozy, but like there is adventure but not super high stakes yet, it usually is that book on my head.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try that. Something that helps me is that if I get in a book slump and I'm only reading in one format, I will switch up the format. So if it's physical and I'm like, why is this just not moving for me? I'll try to find an audiobook. I'll try to find the ebook. And that usually just like kind of, it helps me finish the book at least.
Okay.
Because sometimes I find myself slumping in the middle of a book when there's just no movement.
Guys, I'll get a text from Kate that's just like, oh, this book is not moving. Like, and I'm just like,
I think that's why I like thrillers so much, is because you have to keep it moving.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I was so disappointed in The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. It just like, I was hoping that we would find a big clue, at least 40% in. I'm like, oh, keep me going. That's why I love Frida McFadden, is because she always leaves you with another breadcrumb and another breadcrumb after every chapter. She's so good at it. Anyway, but yeah, I'm like, I think changing up your format, if you can, might help you. So like if you're listening to it on audiobook, you pick up from where you left off. It's like you're doing other things too. So maybe you're crocheting or coloring or running an errand, and then you're like, oh, what's actually happening? So you have to pay attention in a different way. Yeah,
I like that. I think also something that I find also helps is just reading something easier. You know?
Oh, that's true.
Especially because you mentioned having like a lull in the book.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's needed in a book. Sometimes it needs to be a little slow so that I can pick up, and it doesn't always work, but you know, sometimes that's a thing in books. But sometimes you just need to pick up a YA something.
Yes, YA is so fun,
you know,
guys.
just to breeze through. Just to breeze through. And also, I mean, we're 25 and 29.
Yeah.
We love our YA.
Oh, yeah.
We love it.
Oh, yeah.
We love
Absolutely.
it. And I think there's something about just like an easy read. You know, like one of our favorite books is Better Than the Movies.
Yes, that's so
and it's because it feels like a Disney Channel.
Yes,
movie,
yes.
You know, and so as you were saying, like the Lizzie McGuire movie is just like a comfort movie for you.
Yeah.
Better Than the Movies is like an easy breezy, just good little YA rom-com to read. Like it's just very comforting. You just have a good time with it. So like those kinds of books.
Well, also you're talking about like switching up a genre too. If you're reading a lot of fantasy and you're trying to enter a new world and you're like, this is not hitting as much as the other one, I usually will go to a rom-com or a thriller just because I'm like, okay, break it up, let's go. Okay, and then I'll go back and like try to again. So I think that might also help, is to like go to the YA but maybe also a different genre too, that you feel like moves a little faster. Moving on to kind of a funny thing that I want to talk about, which is books that put us in a slump. Ooh, let me get my list out.
But I think that there's two ways to go about this, and that have happened to, I think, both of us, which is the books that we're not vibing with, not enjoying, and it put us in a slump. Or the books that were so good that you can't move on, and so then no other book is hitting as hard.
I know.
You know? And so I think
there are two great sides of book slumps.
Right.
How about we start with the ones that were not hitting at all?
Yeah.
And then we'll go to the ones that were great.
Sounds good to me. You want to start us off?
Sure. I don't think I've talked about this book a lot here, but The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches.
Yeah.
I read it in the fall, and fall is my favorite time. I love reading the cozy fantasy, cozy mysteries. I absolutely eat up dark academia. This one was like found family, very sweet. And I remember buying it. I was so excited, and it just was not hitting at all. At all. I thought it was really cute, but there wasn't much happening, and I was already like 40% in, and I was like, I can't do this. And then after that, I don't think I read another like cozy thing for the fall until November, and that was like October. So that was a little rough for me, because I was again, my expectation for this book, because I saw so many recommendations of it, it was high, right? And it just kind of fell through for me.
I think for me, one of the books that I was just like, why did I read this? Like, I just was The Silent Patient.
Yeah, you've mentioned that to me before.
A very popular thriller, and he's a very popular thriller author. I also read The Maidens by him, and I didn't like it either. I've not liked the books I've read. I know. I'm sorry.
Well, but also, at least you tried another one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But The Maidens was fine. Didn't really put me in a slump. But The Silent Patient, I don't know. I like finished that book, and I was just like, like, okay. Like, I just don't remember. I don't remember immediately finding another book that I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to keep reading. Like, I think it just kind of put me in like a meh mood. And that's not great. You know, you don't love that feeling.
Right.
But it's just one of those books that, I mean, I know a lot of other people really like it, which is great.
Yeah.
It wasn't doing it for me.
Okay.
I think, ironically, and this is one that I don't know if I've really talked to you about, but I know that you love it, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.
Really?
I liked it, but I feel like I kind of just slowed down my reading afterwards.
Interesting. Okay.
Where I was kind of like,
well, the thing with Addie LaRue is like there's no huge plot point. You're just kind of following this girl around until there is, and that's toward the end. And you're like, well, dang it! Like I didn't want to know that you've been in Paris for like 70 years. Like I didn't need to know that. Yeah. I get it though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think I have more books though that are in the category of so good that I could not move on. Mm-hmm. But I want to start off with you. Do you have any in that category where you were like, I can't move on from this?
Well, let me bunch this together. So, guys, Ruthless Vows came out in end of December. Yeah. So, like, that was me and Sophia's like biggest anticipated. We were like, oh my god, it's coming out, you know. But in December, our book club, the very first book club we had, it was Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I DNF'd. And I think part of it was because Ruthless Vows was on my mind a lot. And I was like, I don't want to read anything else until the day after Christmas. And I read it in a day. Yeah. So partially I didn't enjoy Inheritance Games, but also I was thinking about another book because I know, but we were talking about that with you too.
Yeah, when Funny Story was coming out. Yeah. I was talking about how I didn't really want to read other rom-coms / like romance literary fiction because I didn't want to have to compare it directly. Yeah. So that is a thing.
Yes.
That is a thing.
Yes.
That's so real.
But speaking of Ruthless Vows, Divine Rivals really put me, it was so good. And you guys, a lot of you have read Divine Rivals because of us. Yeah. You'll say it's so good that like I couldn't think of anything else. I think I took a break and I was like, like I was just like, I was so happy about that. So what about you?
So I mean, who do you think I'm going to say put me in a good slump?
Oh, Rebecca.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think with River Enchanted. Divine Rivals, I agree with.
I know.
But I think after reading the duology of the Elements of Cadence, River Enchanted and Fire Endless,
absolutely.
I want to stay in this world.
I know.
But of course, the other, series that's just like, I can never move on from, honestly, ever, because I'm always comparing to it, is specifically Throne of Glass.
Oh, right.
I think that, slump. I was in a slump a little bit afterwards, because it's just like nothing will compare, ever. Ooh. And I will say, I tried to go into the Immortal Instruments, I think is what, the Cassandra Clare series. Yeah. Because I really wanted to. Like, I finished Throne of Glass series as my reread, which, by the way, as a reread, like, it just hits so much deeper because you just, like, find so many other things that you're like, man, like, but I tried to, I think I read maybe a rom-com in between. I'm trying to remember. I read maybe Another Life.
Okay, right.
I read that in between. Okay. Yeah. Which was a good little breakup.
That was a good one.
But then I went right into the Infernal Devices, and it's not fantasy like Throne of Glass, but it is fantasy. And it just took me a while to get through. Like, I felt like I was reading a lot slower.
Right.
And it was because, like, in the back of my mind, I just couldn't get away from Throne of Glass. Like, I couldn't get away from those characters. And it's really funny because as much as I will always recommend Throne of Glass, I'm like, yeah, they're going to live in your head rent-free for the rest of your life. It's such an amazing series. But it kind of stays with you.
Yeah.
And sometimes I still find myself comparing books and series to it.
Oh, I see. So that's hard.
But you should absolutely read these books.
Yeah.
It might just put you in a little bit of a slump though, because then you just want to stay there.
Yeah. You know what? I'm also reading Harry Potter. I finished Goblet of Fire like this past fall. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to finish the series because I'm nervous because I love it so much.
Yeah.
I told Sophia I was crying on the subway when You Know Who, You Know What. If you have not read Goblet of Fire or seen it. So I think that it put me in like this slump in a series where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle. And I am going to finish. And that's how I feel. I've finished Heir of Fire and I got Queen of Shadows and I've been kind of picking it up and putting it down and not in a bad way, but I'm like, oh, this is where it's going to get great. And then also it's the middle of the series.
Right.
So I think it's like, it's Queen of Shadows, the tandem read. And then the Kingdom of Ash. So once I finish this, it's like a snowball. I probably won't be able to stop. How do you feel that way about series that you're like, oh no,
when you're
it's
in the
gonna
middle of
end?
them?
Yeah,
I guess so. I haven't really put that into words, but now that you're saying that, I'm kind of like, oh, you're so right.
Right.
When you're in the middle of something, or even in the middle of a really good book.
I know. I do that too.
Where you're like, man, I want to finish it, but I also really don't want to.
Yeah.
When that happens to you, though, because like you were saying right now with Queen of Shadows, you're kind of picking it up, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down with reading other books in between.
Yeah.
Do you think, I think for you, when you have that feeling, you actually do actively put the book down for a while?
I do.
I think for me, I still keep reading.
Oh.
Even if I'm sad, because I'm kind of like, I also want to I want to stay in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep reading, even though I'm like, oh, I don't want to finish this book yet, though.
I know.
You know?
It's such like a weird emotional thing because once you're in a series like that deep, like book 4 or 5, now you are fully attached to these characters. Unless something crazy is like, well, I've heard people just be like, I don't want to finish at all. I don't want to finish at all. But the series that we have been in, and even like the duologies, and like I remember being in Ruthless Vows and I had like 5 chapters left and I was like I just didn't want it to end. And I feel like that's a hard place to be as a reader because you love it. You love it so much.
I think I can compare this feeling most accurately to when I was waiting for Avengers, both Infinity War, but specifically, more specifically for Avengers Endgame to come out. Because you want that movie so bad.
I know.
But you also don't.
I know.
And the other feeling I can compare it to is when Crescent City 3 was coming out. Which is, I wanted it so bad, but I also didn't.
Is that it for Crescent City?
I think there might be one more. I think she's confirmed one more.
Okay.
But she's working on, or we all can assume she's working on the next ACOTAR book, which is crazy.
Right.
But then also, apparently she's announced a new series.
She said, in a world that we love.
Exactly.
What does that mean,
I know.
Sarah?
So that's where I'm like, and you know, as of the time of recording, she hasn't said anything. If anything's changed in the past, you know, I don't know, a couple weeks that we've been recording, we'll let you know. But I don't know.
I know.
We'll see.
I do wonder, here's a theory, I think she could come out with something with Throne of Glass, whether that is a prequel of someone else's point of view.
Oh, that'd be so good.
That would be awesome, or like
years in the future, maybe.
Or in the future, or like one of the books, but from another, like Rowan, like I don't know. That would be that's my theory. I think that's a good really theory. Freaking cool because I really loved Assassin's Blade. Yeah, I really loved it, and I feel like she could really go any way she wants to because that world is crazy.
I honestly think that but you know, she could also do something that's like years in the future in that world. So like jumping way ahead, where you know maybe some of our favorite characters are no longer like with us. Type thing. I don't know. Could be. And I'm speculating. But also now here's the thing. I might be getting my hopes up too much, and that's a bad thing. You know. But yeah, I'll just say like that is also a little bit of a feeling where again you're not like necessarily in a slump, but you're like I don't want it to end, but I do want it to. But I also
I will say Heir of Fire was the slowest one for me. Yeah. And I remember posting it on TikTok and I had a few people be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I felt crazy because I think there's so much hype around Throne of Glass and Sarah J Maas anyway. Yeah. And so I thought something was wrong with me where I was like, well, like I'm getting through it, but I'm like not enjoying it as much as XYZ books. Right. And so I was kind of in a slump and it took me a year, almost a year I think I started it last summer and I finished it a month ago or two.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, what's going on? Anyway, happy that I did that. But
yeah, I think I would love to hear what books you think would help others get out of a slump.
yeah. I recently just read Magnolia Parks, the first one. I loved it. And I think if you kind of love the toxicity, that it's so fun. Now, here's the weird thing is that I'm reading the second book, which is in a different character's love life. So we're not following them in the second book, if that makes sense.
Okay.
We're following a new couple. It's fine. Not my favorite. But Magnolia Parks, it had been on my brain for a while. I finally got in the mail. And if you saw the 24-hour readathon, I read it and I loved it. And honestly, I think maybe that was why it was hard to continue to read other books during that readathon, because I was thinking about that a lot. And I loved it. I really did.
Because with the 24-hour marathon, you had to jump right into
another book.
To another book.
And then I tried a thriller. I don't know why I did that. Ooh, yeah, guys, that was rough. That was rough in the wee hours of the evening. Yeah, what about you? Book slump.
I think,
book. Get out of
it. I mean, it depends on your mood. If you're in like a fantasy slump and you're like, I need a rom-com or I need a thriller to get me out of the, I just feel like I'm stuck. I think something maybe if you're ready for a little bit more emotion than just like a really funny rom-com, I think maybe something like The 7-Year Slip would grip you enough.
Yeah, that's
to be
fun.
like to and I mean there's a little bit of a there's topics of there's maybe look up the trigger warnings just in case it's something that would affect you. But if you are okay with diving into a romance literary fiction, there's enough stuff in that book that's just a standalone that I think would just give you those cozy, happy feelings.
Right.
That could really help pull you out of like if you're like I've just been reading so much fantasy, like oh my gosh, I gotta like because there's a little bit of magical realism in it, which is great because it keeps you a little bit in that fantasy world.
Yes.
But it's so different. I think I would also recommend for rom-com vibes In a New York Minute by Kate Spencer. I think that's just a really fun little rom-com that will, again, maybe check trigger warnings, but it's overall it's a very fun book that would help kind of get you out.
Yeah.
But if you are just like not feeling like reading at all and you're like, I just want to pick up a book, I don't know what, I have no idea, like maybe it's been a couple weeks since you even picked up a book, I would recommend something in like the YA fantasy world.
Yeah.
So that could be anything. That could be Caraval.
Oh my
that
gosh.
Could be Ember in the Ashes. That could be, I'm trying to think of like, stuff I've read. But anything maybe that's like YA fantasy, I think is enough to grip you. Because usually YA fantasies are a little bit easier to read. And there's just fun worlds. Like there could be high stakes, and something with high stakes could pull you in.
Yeah.
So I think either a fun little rom-com or something that's like easy to read, but you want to dive into a world.
Yes.
Could be really good. So like, I think Caraval is a great place to start, maybe with like, we've recommended that before, where you're like, it grips you enough that you're like, oh, what's happening?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Very whimsical, super fun. I think also if you want to try a thriller, because fast-paced, we've talked about this one before, None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. Sophia listened to the audiobook. She said it was so fun.
So good. If you're like, I don't physically feel like picking up a book, but let me try an audiobook, that's a good one.
That's a good one. Another audiobook that I recently loved is Ready or Not by Cara Bastone.
Okay.
Guys, it's so good. The narrator is actually a Broadway actress.
Wow.
Shout out Alex Fink. Don't know you, but if you listen to this, you're amazing. I don't like a lot of it's always the narrator that will really make me decide if I want to finish the audiobook.
I agree.
And I have to say this one was funny, it was sweet, it was cute. She was speaking in like normal speed, so you didn't feel like she was talking too slow.
Nice.
That's such a cute, wholesome rom-com that I recently read, and you should definitely try an audiobook if you don't even want to do some like a thick brick of a girl.
I know it's also, and I think you're so right about, at least again, I agree with audiobooks where it's really all about who's reading it and how they're reading it, because sometimes it pulls me like out of it where I'm like, I really don't want to be listening.
Yeah.
But some, like I said, like None of This Is True grip me. I
Yes.
loved the way they did that audiobook, and I genuinely felt like that was the way to go about it.
She's a new to me thriller author that I want to read more of because I think she has a lot of good ones.
Yeah, she's got a decent backlist.
I know.
And I think, honestly, I haven't read a lot of thrillers, but a thriller could just be the way
Yeah.
to get you out.
Yeah.
Because they're usually standalones. They usually are able to keep you hooked. I mean, sometimes, like we mentioned, The Paris Apartment didn't necessarily keep... I did not read it, but you said it didn't really keep you that hooked in the middle of it. But thrillers could be a great option as well. I think also, like I said at the beginning, it's okay to kind of sit in a slump for a little bit. Like, don't force yourself. Because if you keep forcing yourself, that's just not going to work. In general, no matter what you try to pick up.
Yep.
I think it's totally okay to just try other things.
Yeah.
Reading should not be... Okay, let me put it this way. Reading for fun should never feel like homework. You should never feel like you have to read because you have a bunch of books in your TBR or because other people are reading and enjoying it. Like, really, it's okay to take your time and, like, sit in it and just, like, do other things. Like, or,
Exactly.
So I think, like we said, there's a lot of ways to get out of a slump and to enjoy getting out of a slump. Those comfort books, the rereading, the listening to audiobooks, the switching up genres, doing an easy read, all of those things. But it's okay to, like, not put pressure on yourself either. But I hope that helped. I think that reading slumps are weird, but
we all go through it. It's okay.
We all go through it. And also, you know what? Sometimes if you guys, if you're going through a slump and you found a book that really got you out of it, I would love to know because
tell us.
Slumps are always going to be a thing. It's always going to happen.
Yep.
It's just going to be an occasional, sometimes you're like,
right.
Don't feel like it.
Yeah.
So, like we said, keep in contact with us. Again, as a reminder, we have our Fable Book Club that's going on. It's free to join. Just make a little profile and join us. We love talking to you guys. And always feel free to DM us also on our
tell us
Instagram.
about your books.
It's so fun having conversations with y'all. And it's a great way to have community and also help each other get out of book slumps.
I know. Yeah.
So please always feel free to reach out to us. We love talking to you guys. And keep recommending books to us.
Yes.
It's so fun.
We love it.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.